at my current job that I was on a show,
Yeah.
and then they got mad at me and played it for like the boss, and on that very episode I was like, here's the name of the company I work at and here's the dirt they do. I think that might do it because I did know a guy
Yeah,
that
that would do it for anybody though.
Maybe don't
It
do
doesn't
yeah.
that.
matter. It
Then.
doesn't matter where you work.
Maybe don't do that. I mean,
How
I'm
about
just
no?
saying, listen, if we're gonna be real for a minute, okay, everybody knows my name is Pedro Saint Pedro, and everybody knows Jank's name is the Guatemalan Nightmare. And
I went to utilizing the Puerto Rican rattlesnake at work the other day.
how did that go?
Well enough. One of my coworkers is actually Dominican, so I switched it up specifically for him to be the Dominican rattlesnake, but everyone else was the Puerto Rican rattlesnake.
There you go. You slip it right in with like those like friendly nicknames coworkers have for each other.
Yeah, like dump truck
Dick
and Aner.
bag, ass face.
Yeah.
Fuck
Fire
that guy
rattlesnake.
again.
Oh.
Butterball.
Hey,
Butterballs
look
is
at
my
this
favorite
guy.
pet name.
This guy, he's the best guy in shipping. They call him the Puerto Rican rattlesnake, and then the guy's just standing there like,
Why?
who calls me that?
Yeah.
Who's been saying that?
Yeah, and we all know that Eat the Rich's real name is Kimberly Guilfoyle. So
Yeah, MAGA is a thing.
yeah. And of course, True Horror 69. I'm gonna dox him right now. That's Jim Belushi. So
Yeah,
not the
everybody
same
knows.
Jim Belushi.
I don't know if you
Good
guys knew
example.
this, but I got that loud. I got that loud on hand. Here's a picture of it.
Bangarang.
Did you guys see that? That motherfucker posted some pretty good looking weed.
Yeah. He can pay
Whose
for it.
titties
though.
am I looking at in the chat?
Oh, Jim Belushi's.
Where? What chat? Whose titties?
Chat.
Oh, that's Megan McCain.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh yeah, she has clown breasts. Those are circus sized. Yeah, the woman can't run on a treadmill. It's not safe. She'll just break her nose. She has a giant nose. Oh, I can say that. I'm allowed. She feels like she's Jewish, so she can deal with it too.
She looked like a rat fucker.
She does look
You
like a
know,
rat fucker.
I mean, technically she is. I mean, like if you talk to Joe Lieberman like one time,
Yeah.
like
Hey.
you by the transitive property.
Did anybody throw on Twitter or Facebook that we're streaming tonight?
I did not. I can do that though. Let me see. One moment.
Oh, we probably should.
I'm
I will
saying,
have to
If-
create a Twitter to do that.
I thought you had a Twitter.
do it right quick. I'm just like
I,
fucking,
I do have a Twitter. I just don't use it.
Oh.
just like fucking slugging around
I have
today.
2 Twitters.
Oh, let's see here.
I made an Eat the Rich one. I don't think I've logged into it ever.
You haven't. You just haven't.
I just didn't like Twitter.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah.
Twitter, it's hell world.
I mean, you're totally correct not to like it.
You're sitting there and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah. No, it's total
I could
hell.
be anywhere else right now.
Like you're just waiting for, and I think Dan was talking about it the other day. You're just waiting for somebody to say either like, I don't know who needs to hear this, or what was the one specifically that you were talking about, Dan? So bad.
Oh, shit! I never remember what I say.
Fucking
I
just one of
say
those
too
little
much.
lead-in phrases to where it's like, you know, you're about to read the worst fucking post you ever read in your life. Like, oh, fuck.
Shit.
I'm so trash at the internet.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Twitter's not real
Trying to-
life. You know what
No,
is
it's
real
not.
life though?
What's that?
The Sons of Trier podcast and live stream. I'm your host, Dan Cohen. I'm the Jewish feast, the beast from the east, the second son of Trier, and the man with no pubic hair, waving his arms like you just don't care. Why is he hairless? 'Cause of Nair. Oh.
The
I
Puerto
don't
Rican
even know right.
rattlesnake.
No,
He
that
really
doesn't
went
rhyme.
there.
Oh, that's right. He really went there. Wow, I have 6,666 tweets.
Really?
The
Yes.
Puerto Rican rattle snare?
The Puerto Rican rattle snare. I'll take it. I'm joined tonight by Eat the Rich.
Smooth.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Good.
Very good,
Keep going.
sir. So
Uh,
you want me to do a bit or something? I
I
mean,
well, that is your opportunity to do a bit.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just saying smooth because yeah, smooth transitions.
Yeah. Yeah. I brought the high energy. We did a little riff,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I see what you're doing. Yeah,
yeah.
you're going in there.
Yeah.
Don't let me stop you. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate the permission. I like that. Um, we
I'll hop in the middle of everything else.
oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. I'm also joined by Jank Angles.
Ooh, I'm here with a handful and bevy of non-binary potato heads to
None.
shove somewhere. We'll find out tonight.
Indeed, potatoes.
And in fact, if you wanna take it getting into the action, you can go to betdsi.com and bet where those potato heads are going. Just search around the site for a while, you'll find it. It's on there.
I'll give you a hint. It's equally disgusting, but very surprising.
Yeah, you will be shocked. The obvious answer probably isn't the right one, or it is. If Occam's razor has anything to say about it, anyway. Fuck that guy Occam, by the way. What do you think of Occam's razor, Mr. True Horror?
Hey, how's it going? Good evening, everyone. If Robbie Starbuck is a Cuban, then I'm an Irishman. From now on, I wish to be treated as separate from white people and referred to as an Irishman.
Okay, I don't know how to handle that news.
I saw him say that at CPAC. He was like,
Whatever you say, oh true horror.
"I'm very Cuban, and I'm using that fact to make a point, and just working that angle." And I'm thinking, I should work that angle too.
Listen,
Or Scotsman. Part of me is also a Scotsman. Maybe I should use a Scotsman.
listen. We gotta have an HR sidebar right now. Okay, did you read the contract?
Well,
Did you?
it says that I have to check one box.
Shh, keep it down. Keep it down. We don't want to let the other hosts hear. Did you read the contract?
Well, it did, and it only had all the boxes for all the different kinds of shitty Southern white guy, but I need to check like several of those boxes due to like historical interbreeding of like all the shitty kinds of white guy.
Listen, you'll find under the no potato eaters clause that you can't be Irish on this podcast. We have a strict rule against that. You can't.
That's why my potatoes aren't going in my mouth.
God damn it!
Oh,
We're having an HR sidebar. We're having an HR sidebar.
See, just like with Robbie's Cuban heritage, we're post famine. See, like we left, but not because of the famine. We left when the potato famine ended because we hated potatoes.
Again, I need you to look over the contract. It was very clear in the terms when you were invited on the show the first time. It's very clear in the
I
terms.
have some concerns about this contract that I've already signed, by the way.
That's your fault. That sounds like a you problem.
I did get incredibly drunk when I signed it, but now that I'm rereading it, it does say something about being able to use my likeness for video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too late. That motherfucker is in the cloud. The contract, your likeness, all of it.
Damn it.
Yeah, I've strapped your face onto an anthropomorphic rabbit.
Is it?
I had to work on that.
It's called Humper Quest.
Oh, actually, you know what? You lost me with the anthropomorphic rabbit, but you
like
brought me back with the vague pornographic undertones. I'm in.
Yeah.
It's like Zootopia,
As if I had a
obviously
choice.
different.
It's exactly like Zootopia if the girl lady cop were a boy meth addict porn star and she just fucked the shit out of that fox.
He's a bottom.
Well, sometimes a bottom can be a top, is all I'm saying, if you just flip him over. So
the power bottom?
He's right there with Simp Boy.
Yeah.
With Cuck Boy.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing there. I'm sorry. And
is your wife hot?
Great way to open the show. This is what the audience loves to hear.
The audience loves it.
Furry porn.
Well,
I'm not bringing nothing to the table. I'm not packing a snappy intro. I'm just tired and sore and pissed off and full of CPAC. I'm just ugh.
If it makes you feel
Ooh,
any better, I just
you're-
wasted all of my good jokes for tonight, so I'm Bert.
I
That's
thought,
okay.
honest to God, I was expecting True Horde to
It
play off the
can't be
razor portion
because
of
you make
Occam's
them
razor.
up.
Yeah, I'm kind of tapped.
I don't know
in,
how
man.
it ended up on furry porn, but okay.
I look.
saw I saw a furry snail crawling on a razor blade.
What was that? What's that penguin thing? Penguin rope.
Mm,
It's a rope penguin.
yeah, it's a
No,
rope
don't be
penguin.
giving away our good openers.
Penguin and a rope.
Yeah, you can't even make an account on a perfectly normal website anymore without the very first account being recommended to you is described as a rope penguin.
Not that we ever pre-plan our openers, obviously.
And it was described with
Yeah,
an emoji.
yeah, these are totally canned.
These are totally canned.
That's
It's
right.
the word
The stuttering
just
is
the
the
word my bad.
The
It's
aggressive
just the word.
talking over each other.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's the word rope, but then a penguin emoji because you have to be on Parlor to get the rope emoji. Sorry.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that takes a second.
You want to add a rope emote? No, no!
They don't really have one of those, I don't think.
Delete.
Why would you need a rope emoji? Is it like, hey, honey, I want to shibari. I want to
Because it catches
shibari
rabbits.
you? What?
It's endearing that that's where your mind went. It's actually like a sign of nature is healing. You know what I mean? Like things are getting better. You know what I mean?
I thought it was some kinky shits.
Yeah.
Or do they?
Nature
Well,
is healing.
the only other way I can think of it is like, are they like, are they like, oh man, that's so good, I'd lynch it. Like, is that like, is lynch just their word for like, I'd hit that? Are they just that depraved?
It's like leading a horse to water, but there's no water.
I got a bad feeling that now that you've said that, it is now. I got
I'm-
that's
It's a lynching thing.
Yeah.
they're not just gonna leave that laying around on this show on the internet. That's gonna get repeated.
Man, I'm glad
hear
nobody
about it.
watches this then. I'm so fucking glad. Oh,
Well, at least you don't have to look at ropes,
yeah,
and that's a win.
that is a win.
Yeah.
Win for who?
I guess us.
Everybody involved.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Well, you know what isn't a win for everybody involved? Joe
Biden?
Biden and his repeated nuking of Fight for 15.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not going well.
No.
He just shit on the floor. It
Yeah.
stood there, and everybody's looking at it, just right there on the floor.
It's gonna be one of
Go
those.
sit Jack, and he just shits on the floor.
It's pretty goddamn depressing.
I'm just glad it made it there in the first place. Because I was quite surprised. I was like, what? Would they slide that in there? I was sure they was going to give us half past nothing.
Well, you were right. In the end, they gave us half past nothing. Still waiting on the $2,000 check I'm no longer eligible for.
Oh
They did
yeah,
the
that
walk- they
shit.
did the
Yeah.
You
walk
look
back and
real
change.
carefully on the back of, I think, the $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
They have a picture of the White House.
Yeah.
And my understanding is you can actually see your $2,000 check on most of those $20 bills in that window.
Yeah. So I
fighting for him.
guess I want to be serious a moment, and I want to tackle some of these notions on the minimum wage. Right. That's really what brings me to the table tonight. Besides the fact I'm the lead host, and generally speaking, my contract says I have to be here at least 52 times a year.
We might as well. We're just like lashing the comedy particles out of ourselves with like I mean like I don't know how you guys are feeling today. I'm
I haven't just begun to crump comedy particles, sir.
Yeah. We're leaving it to him tonight for the jokes because I went to furry porn. I went to Fistfight for 15, which is what I believe the next step of the movement is.
Yes.
We just begun to shit on Biden, though. Come on, guys.
All right, for you, buddy.
I know you got a lot of dumpage.
Well, it's like trying to dunk into a 5 foot tall hoop against a 2-year-old. Like, yeah, you really should be able to do this. You're kind of lazy if you can't dunk
The
them.
2-year-old asked for it.
Well, they
That
did ask
2-year-old
for it.
was asking for it.
They shouldn't have stepped. I agree. Teach children that they
You
don't
gotta
belong
come
in the court.
correct.
Yeah, you don't belong in the court.
Oh,
Okay.
your ball on the ground.
So we're going to tackle this matter in the traditional Sons of Trier way, which is a whole lot of off the top of your head and thought processes. First off, is anybody on the podcast in the anti-consensus against Fight for 15? Or are we all on
No.
board?
I'm pretty sure we're all on board for
Yeah.
15 or as
Yeah.
much as they're willing to pay people.
Is we on board for
I get
30?
I get the occasional spicy take, but this is not going to be one of mine. 15 is not an unreasonable expectation.
No.
Okay. How do you feel
Okay,
about...
where does it become unreasonable then?
Okay, good. You bring up the first thing I want to do. The first objection is the Sorite's paradox. At what point is it unreasonable, right?
I mean, let me put it like this. I would be okay with it being $7 an hour if there was a reasonable expectation of there being a safety net for people that weren't making that. Like
Well,
if $7 an hour, but
that's your fantasy. That's speculation. We can't
yeah,
count
yeah.
that.
If it can stay at fucking $7 an hour if people aren't worried about putting a roof over their head and food in their mouths.
Yeah, or if your electric company doesn't like charge you $15,000 while you freeze to death or whatever, you know, if that was illegal.
That would never happen anywhere in the world.
I mean, if you start including medical bills,
that also would definitely never happen in the United. You can just go to a hospital and they'll have to treat you. That's how that works.
No, if people weren't like, maybe they could pay us for the medical bills they're not taking care of.
Yeah, there you go. That would work.
That's all I'm saying.
Instead of like a guy,
that's a bump up, man. That's gotta be like 30 at least.
Instead of like a guy gets his arm sliced off at work and he's just trying to jam it back into the socket and begging them not to put him in the ambulance with his last.
Let me just pull 1,500 out of my ass. Here, set it on the table.
So, good job, fella.
I don't even have that much.
Proud of you for picking up the slack retired and paying Dan. Thank you.
My opinion on the matter is that the number is irrelevant. It's whether or not people can afford to.
The number is irrelevant.
Well, no, like from like a truly like objective standpoint.
That's what numbers are. The numbers is supposed to be where it is to not die, and that not dying is not at 15.
Yeah.
Where is it at with inflation?
I think that the concept of focusing on the number is a way that we get logged into chasing the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
Rather than chasing the $15 an hour, we should be chasing things like a robust social safety net. You know.
Well, you guys decided that you want to keep capitalism. We don't get a safety net and capitalism. So they gotta pay us.
Trying my best.
So I'm saying they gotta give us like 60 now.
I always tried. Back when I thought I was gonna talk anybody down here at any of these jobs into anything, I always used to try to phrase it like in a, like a pro-conservative, like I'm helping you kind of way. And I would always say, well, you gotta take care of your horse. And the guy I was talking to would always be like, who's the horse? And this and that, you motherfucker, like you're the horse. They never got that part. Like, I'd say, let's go ahead and go to break. You got.
I don't have a horse.
They're thinking of a literal horse.
Yeah. True. I don't have a horse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what people would say. They would be
have
confused.
to first explain figurative language to them.
I would say, let's go ahead and go to break. We got to take care of the boss's horse. And then they would just be like, who is this motherfucker talking about? Like, you motherfucker, you.
I ain't never heard of no horse.
You let the boss ride his horse as much as he wants to. His horse will fucking keel over and die on the side of the road, and then he'll be sad because he won't have a horse. He'll have to get a new horse.
Utopia stuff, huh?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Brief explanation of the Sorite's paradox, right? I'm gonna try to keep to it, but really, I'm just here to press buttons tonight.
Those are the best episodes.
Those are the best. Yeah. Boop, 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 boop. Woo. The Sorite's paradox was originally proposed by a Greek philosopher. Sorite's, surprisingly.
Wait. Pick me. This is the sand one, right?
This is the sand one.
I fucking hate sand. It's gritty. course.
It
gets
is gritty.
everywhere.
So if you look
Okay,
at
Anakin.
you look
Hey, way to go.
yeah. So you look at a beach, right? A beach has a finite number of grains of sand, but it's for our purposes it's infinite. It's uncalculable, right?
Right.
So you pick up a handful of sand. Would you say that you have like a sand dune or a sand mound, right? You wouldn't. But then you start gently adding one by one grains of sand to that. At what point does that handful of sand have to be put on the ground and has it converted over to a mound of sand? It seems pretty fucking irrational to actually make a definitive answer to that question, doesn't it? Like you'd actually
Yeah.
have to sit there and count the grains of sand, and you'd have to look at all the factors involved and compare it to everything going on around it.
See, that's where you're wrong. I'd weigh it.
The thing I see is the labor involved in calculating the shit is a massive waste in the face of how
Well,
productive you could have been if you just didn't
You don't
or
know
whatever.
science, people.
well, the point is,
Yeah. You want to see some people waste some labor.
right. The point to it is that the labor is arbitrary and the dividing line is kind of arbitrary. Whereas like if you're walking along the beach, you know where the beach is flat and you know where the mounds of sand are, but you don't know the exact number of grains of sand it takes to formulate a mound. So when we talk about the minimum wage, a lot of times conservatives go, why not 20? Why not 30? Why not 50? Why not 60?
Yeah,
Why
why
not
not
100?
50?
Well, the first point is like, why don't we start the negotiation at 50 then, dickhead, and see how quickly you back down, right?
Right.
But in all seriousness, like it's a very fallacious argument because they're engaging in the Sorites paradox as if they expect you to figure out at what line, what dollar and cent combination constitutes a living wage.
How
You
much you got?
you don't you know that based on the expenses of society, about $600 a week will function as a barely living wage at this point, right? Because at the time it was
Yeah. Destroy capitalism. Moving forward.
right. God damn it, motherfucker! Let me do the goddamn theory at least,
You
please.
spoiled the
Okay.
ending.
Okay.
All right. So the argument they make is essentially that they demand of you to bog yourself down and calculate the exact dollar and penny figure at where the wage is perfect. Which, even if you were to do that, which is theoretically, relatively speaking, doable, right? What's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to say no anyway. So they're asking you to engage in an arbitrary exercise. It's entirely fallacious in its reasoning. And then they're just going to say fucking no anyway, because this is what they fucking do. So
Right.
the refute I tend to make is like, all right, instead of worrying about what number it exactly is, let's just peg it to inflation, right? So if inflation, the background rate of inflation is about 1.7% every year, like all bullshit aside, once you average it out, it's like 1.7% globally. Let's just peg it to 1.8. That way it always outruns inflation. Because if it's
Okay,
always outrunning inflation, you'll never have that problem. Then the number,
Right.
while the wage is itself arbitrary, right? So we satisfy your arbitrary requirement. You're right, it is arbitrary, but it will always outrun inflation, so nobody ever is not being paid a living wage.
Until a
you're-
Republican comes in and guts it.
Well, right. That's generally the first objection. The next objection
Or a
is
liberal.
yeah. Well, the Republican
these
will
days,
set the
Jesus.
tone.
We
How
get so many choices.
as a general rule, how the government functions in a very realistic sense is that a Republican sets the tone and then a liberal will come along and achieve the goal. Because the liberal will pacify opposition. That's Biden's purpose, is to pacify opposition to the Trump era madness.
It's the perfect vocal stylings to do that, really. With the like every sentence starts with "come on" or "look, man," like it's just perfect, really.
It starts like this. Yeah, come on, man. I just put a big one in my butt, and I'm squeezing it tight here, Mac, and I'm still doing a speech. Y'all can make you can make a sacrifice too. That's why I can't send out $2,000 checks. I'm spending $600 in plugs, man. Come on, man.
He's the final form of a man who's tiring to argue with. He's
Yeah.
just like the strongest form of that.
Yeah. Well, at this point he is. He used to be a lot sharper. I will give him that. Still awful, but sharper. Like, I do believe in giving the enemy their due. So yeah, he was a sharp guy at one point. A piece of shit.
Yes, he's mentioned briefly in one of my horrible stories as the man from the '90s who tried to arrest all the rave children. Yes.
Yeah, that's one of his hallmarks. So we always also always spend our time backpedaling on the fight for 15, always trying to defend our position. So let's get aggressive about our position for a moment, right? Let me think of the aggressive. The reasons we ought to, right, is number one, you will annihilate wage gaps. Like you will just completely kneecap a lot of the wage gap narratives that people use as an excuse not to do anything. And what do I mean by that? Let's assume for a second, right? Let's say that let's take a subset of workers. Let's take reference. I think everybody basically knows is sheets, right? Especially if you're from the Northeast, especially Pennsylvania, Ohio way, right? Sheets workers
Yeah.
get paid a starting wage of about 11 an hour. Okay. So if they all start at 11 an hour, right there, you actually have absolutely zero wage gap between workers, no matter what identity combination you pick and compare it to any other identity combination. Even if they share some principles and share some identity vectors and do not share others, or they share absolutely zero identity vectors, you will find that they have a wage gap of zero. It's perfect. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, 100%, right? Because the problem is that the wage gap that exists among identity vectors among all classes, and the class that throws that off, as I've described before, is the billionaire class. So, if we take all Sheets workers and universally give them a raise from $11 to $15 an hour, we have increased all Sheets workers. All vectors have gone up by a rate of $4, which you would say, well, then the gap doesn't really get eliminated. But as a percentage of workers, there is something that's really important to remember, and that's that women, and especially women of color, and especially persons of color, right, universally work something it's like a 2-to-8 ratio in minimum wage jobs. Okay, so you have a group of people who 8 out of 10 of them will be working a minimum wage job compared to just like 2 whites. All right, and specifically white men. So if I'm now paying white men, these 2 white guys, right? I'm paying them $15 an hour. They're now getting a total of 30. But if I'm going from 11, if I'm paying 8 persons of color, especially women, if I pay them an extra $4 an hour, right? For them, they've gone up $32. That wage gap is now $2 in favor of them. So the amount of money they're missing as a group goes down. The wage gap starts being erased, right? And the corollary to that is what the Democrats, and I mean the Democrats on this, right? Because the Republican answer is really easy. Can anybody guess what the Republican answer is? The wage gap?
Fuck.
Doom. Doom.
No. The Republican argument is that they should just try harder.
Yes. Oh,
They could
fuck 'em.
eliminate the wage gap if they just
Or
worked
eat
a
a
little
dick.
harder.
As
As if the black woman working, 2 jobs to keep her kids alive is not working hard enough. That's her problem.
Right.
yes, every
I always
employer
found that like ridiculous, absolutely absurd.
It is absolutely
every
absurd.
employer as a result of being an employer is just inherently making the right decision about how much to pay everyone.
It's never like
Just-
a fit dude. It's always like the fattest, slovenly. He's like, they should work harder, and you're like, what the?
Motherfucker, you don't work. Like, you don't do anything. You,
You're eating donuts.
you eat donuts in
I
a back
almost-
office, you fat fuck. What are you talking about?
I almost said that today at work, but I still have a job, so it can be inferred that I did not actually say that.
Yeah. Well, that's
Sorely tempted.
Congratulations, you did it.
and that is an excellent point. If you were to take a white male, right, who works, we'll say 48 hours a week at Sheets, because I know a guy who does that, right, and a comparable person of color, hell, fuck it, we'll just say non-white, non-male, right, for this exercise. It really doesn't matter if it's a black woman, Latino woman, whatever, it's same boat for this purpose. If they're also working $48 an hour and their wages are the same, who the fuck isn't working as hard as anybody else? They're both working far too fucking hard.
Yeah.
Right? So that argument is prima facie stupid. Really, we have to engage it, but we shouldn't have to engage it.
Right.
Now, On the Republican plan, again, you're right. They're going to say try harder, fuck them, I don't care, right? They're all just in the dismissive. They're pieces of shit. They're the enemy. So you expect them to be outright dismissive.
I'm
But
gonna say take gig work on the side. Like just get
yeah,
out of your normal job,
If
pick up
only
your kids, and then just let them ride with you in an Uber for the rest of the night.
right. If only.
You know what you need to do is be in two
that's what
places
they
at the
would
same
do.
time.
Yeah. It's not our fault. You're not wearing a camera in your fucking pussy while you're fucking working at Sheets. That way men can see your pussy on cam, and you can make money that way. That's your fault. Like that's the Republican answer. It's a fucking
Somehow,
atrocious.
God.
But also, if we catch you doing that, we're gonna fire you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we catch you doing it, we'll fire you. But why aren't you doing it? Because then you make more money. Or you could be working harder. Yeah,
Yeah.
these are atrocious human beings. Like they really are. Like I'm sorry. Like when people talk about some human beings aren't bad, they may not be bad at birth, but they sure as fuck became bad. That
Oh
is
yeah.
what it is.
Without a
If
doubt.
if
What
everything
part of
else,
them is human?
I mean, in a literal object sense, they're still people. They still have human bodies. They still walk around
Yeah.
and behave as humans do, but they're just shitty. If everything that's one of the things that
Just
pisses me
really
off.
bad at being good humans.
Yeah,
Just sound like meat to me.
well they are. Human beings are meat. Crude materialist. So, um, sorry. Like I said, I really am tired tonight, boys, and I appreciate you dealing with my bullshit. Right?
No, you're fine. We're all there. We're making it. We're making it.
I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll do as much
You
filming as
and
I can. in
bullshit?
theory.
No way.
Yeah, right. Never. Um, if we take the Democratic solution, right? The Democratic solution would be to compare among class. And again, with Sheets, we don't actually have a wage gap, so we kind of overlook it, right? In middle management, we start to find the development of a wage gap because in middle management, you tend to find women take roles in HR or get accepted to roles in HR more readily than they do like floor supervision and things like that to pay better, right?
Yeah.
It's not 100% true, but it's true enough to cause a gap, right? Because it doesn't have to be 100% true to cause a gap. It's true enough. As you work your way up the ranks, you find less and less female CEOs, and consequently, wages and compensation raise as you go up the class scale. Turns out that's what class partially means. It's how much money you make and what kind of power you have in society and with over control of your life, right? So as you move up the scale, women eat more shit. Okay? Now, when you come to the level of CEOs, not only are there fewer female CEOs compared to, or not CEOs, billionaires, my apologies, I misspoke. When you come to the level of billionaire, right, this is where the wage gap is the most atrocious, and the 79 cents on the dollar thing doesn't even make fucking sense. Uh, it's literally 4 cents on the dollar, if I'm doing my math right in my head. 4 times, yeah.
Good God.
Well, let me do my math right. That's 2 cents.
It's so much worse when you say it like that. You should say it more like this. It's only 4 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
See how much better that sounds?
Hold on, let me run some quick numbers right here. Let's see. So that would be. Oh yeah, no, it is 4 cents on the dollar. Sorry, I did it right. I thought the number was going to be closer to 8. Like I said, I'm tired. So you find like the highest paid female billionaire is somewhere around $8 billion, right? Which is an atrocious fucking number. Any kind of leftist is vomiting a little bit in their mouth right now. But then they remember Bezos at 200 billion.
Yeah.
And now most of us have gone into a fucking rage panic attack, a combination
Yeah.
of anxiety and rage that some human being is stealing that much. So the problem you end up having is that the solution, like that, if you figure right at the lowest levels of society, when you factor out proportion of identity group as worker and just take worker to worker, the wage gap is almost non-existent because of the fucking minimum wage and because of the way these jobs are structured to be a flat wage. That way they can avoid discrimination lawsuits, right? So to help at the bottom, you actually have to raise the minimum wage. That will combat the wage gap. Democrats, the solution to that would be, you ready? It's kind of obvious. We can just pay $192 billion more in government subsidies to the 8 billion or less female billionaires. That way their earnings are closer to 97 cents on the dollar or closer to a dollar to dollar ratio, if not 97, 98, 94, something like that. And then the wage gap will also be eviscerated, won't it? But there's a fatal flaw there, right? You're talking about 50 fucking women.
It's like Carly Fiorina and the other ones. Like I
Not,
can't even remember.
not even,
like the other
not,
ones.
not Carly Fiorina. You don't even know these women names because they're billionaire women. When it comes to billionaire,
I'm gonna need to test that. I gotta check their vaginas.
Gonna have to follow the link to the camera side.
but really think that through. The Democratic solution would be to just subsidize female billionaires up to about 192 billion.
Let's try to be as fair as humanly possible, which I know is a famous line for this show.
Yeah.
No Democrats are legitimately saying we need to subsidize female billionaires.
Not saying.
I don't know.
Not
If I was a female
saying.
billionaire, I'd be saying that.
No. We're not going to be that nice to the Republicans. Some of them are actually saying that, I'm sure. Like I'm
No.
almost certain we could find a few Republicans being like, you know what, we need subsidies for female billionaires.
You're insane. You're talking about women.
Could we not see it before things got so crazy and, those of us with some human soul left rattling around inside the marrow of our bones, before we all started to move to the left when things got like this, was it like this? What was that thing? Somebody was backed into a corner and had to defend the concentration camps, and they went on for like a
Always
fucking
like
50
these.
tweet thread. And it's like that, isn't it? It's like you want to believe that nobody went on for that long defending the concentration camps, but somebody did, and I'm sure by that same law, now that they're in power and you have to defend them or whatever, if you're that person, somebody
Yeah.
probably did have a big defending the girl boss billionaires and arguing that they need more money. It probably, you could probably find it. It probably exists.
If you go around Twitter long enough, you will find it. And what they will use the language constantly of small businesses.
Yeah.
But if you look at the pattern of action, right, this is where liberals are famous liars. Because Republicans are very honest about it. They really do want to pump money into the hinterland small business tyrants because that's their base, right? They do want to pump money into their base. They're very honest. It's just that they're monstrous, right? To put it in perspective, Narla-Hotep basically says, I'm going to try to kill you. He's very direct about it. It's what he's doing is hideous. Hastur doesn't talk. Hastur's going to try to kill you as well, but Hastur shuts the fuck up about it. Okay, and if you want to understand how these parties actually behave, that's the difference. Right? So if you're familiar with Lovecraftian lore and surrounding mythos, Hastur is a silent, awful monster who kills you quietly and through propaganda, i.e. the King in Yellow, the famous play. And Narla-Hotep just tries to drive you insane and slit your throat. Again, very direct. He basically tells you, I'm gonna hurt you real bad on the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
And
this is why it's so important to have the Azatoth party, to have the third party.
Yeah. He's
an equal opportunity employer.
Exactly. He's an equal opportunity destroyer, to be fair.
Yeah, it's a right to work plane of existence,
Right. Exactly.
You have that right.
So what the Dems will do is they'll also use this rhetoric of we have to help our small businesses. But the small businesses they want to help are little businesses like the Washington Post. They want to help Amazon, Walmart, stuff you've never heard of, right?
Yeah, mom and pops.
Mom and pops. They really want to pump money into those and the surrounding culture around those, which happen to be, guess what? They have male and female billionaires. You can launder money basically through the husband's earnings and income into the hands of the female billionaire that way. And they would be most pleased if they could uplift one black, Latino, Asian, Muslim, Jew, Muslim of Jewish descent, who transitioned from male to female and uplift her.
Yeah.
They would be very happy to just pump 192 billion at her because look, the problem's solved. The wage get all rising tide lifts all boats, as it turns out when you're playing with statistics. And Jank, this is where your famous line, it sounds like you're just playing around with the numbers. Yes, welcome to capitalism. That's what this is.
Yeah, it's definitely. Maybe that is part of it too, is that it's all become very theoretical and esoteric for them. I mean, I'm sure people would argue that it always was, but I feel like that every headline that I read, every news report that I see, it's like it's like commentary on a video game or something. Like it's just like they're talking about something that to them is a simulation.
I mean, I don't know about any of that for the Fight for 15.
I'm serious. Like
No, I
like
think I get what you're talking about. The postmodern types, how they abstract everything instead of
yeah,
trying to keep it straightforward, so they don't have to address the material reality.
like even when they interview somebody about it, it's like someone who has no skin in the game says, "How do you feel about a $15 minimum wage?" to a person who's getting $7, and then they say, "I think it would be great. I really need it. Help me. Oh my God, this is really difficult." And then they go back to the reporter, and they're like, "Well, that sounds serious." Like just like my God, like if it's that big of an issue, then you don't need the reporter. I don't know. I mean I know there's a lot of good stuff being done in new media where people that are really under pressure and have skin in the game are creating media and reporting, but it just I I've never heard a politician or anybody talk about a wage issue in a way
Well,
with any.
that's their bubble though. That's what makes them so wrong right now because they don't have any insight into the actual what's going on with the actual people
Yeah, like
because they don't that's not an existence they could ever know. They show
you
up for a second and that's like a big deal, you know?
yeah, you get like a grain of it here and there. Like I feel like, Sanders gave a fuck. Like he hung around with enough people for him to be depressed about it and concerned about it for a little while, but like
he,
it
I mean, if you call 60 years a little while, I
yeah, yeah.
mean, let's be fair to Sanders. I mean, there are a lot of people there who do
There's going
understand.
to be there are your benevolent dictators, you know? They come down from above and
In defense of Sanders, he did really grow up poor. He spent a lot of time poor, and he was mayor of Vermont. He was a mayor in Burlington, Vermont, of all places. Like that's not.
Famously wealthy mayors of Vermont.
Yeah,
But I mean,
You
so
know,
like
if I was thinking of
okay,
states
so
where I
maybe he
could
doesn't have
name
his full
mayors,
foot in
it
the
would be
out of the bubble.
Vermont.
yes,
like to give the guy full credit, I yes, I agree. He definitely does seem to at least feel that people deserve more than they're getting and that they work much harder for, than the amount that they're compensated for.
I mean, I
But
like him, but he's still trying to save capitalism, and
yes, that I just get that feeling from all of them across the board, Republicans, Democrats, everybody, that they're tinkering with sliders in a simulation and managing a simulation,
well,
and there's
because
just
they
no
can't
real.
really they can't really alleviate the actual problem, so that's basically all they can do is slide things around on the board.
Yes, I mean I feel like doomer as fuck or just pointlessly nihilistic or whatever saying that, but man, it is just ooh.
Of course they would believe all they have to do is shift things around a certain way to get it to work.
Right. It just feels like
Because
I don't think.
it's a game to them. It's their game.
There you go. Yeah.
They rig their game to work in their favor.
Like I'm
So
very serious.
all they need to fix it is to bend the rules or change things in the way that you know what I mean.
Yes, like I'm very into a video game sometimes.
But the problem is that they don't understand. It's that they are bending the game. Their bending of the game is the problem.
Ah, okay, here you go. Here's the metaphor. So, a lot of people are actually in the player base, but these people are like influencers who actually just make posts all day about what should be buffed and nerfed. There we go. There we go.
to some extent, yeah. The issue at hand is that in the particular form of capitalism we have, it's not. In the old form of capitalism, where it was more based on the actual labor supply plus products produced plus products consumed. In that form of capitalism, there was a genuine solution present. It was destroy it.
Do
The
you think we still, our guys our age growing up, do you think we saw like the last dying glimpses of that? Do you think that's why everything feels so hollow now? Like my grandpa was a painter. Like You know, I had some guys in the family that built things, that did things, like they could provably say that
Well,
they.
I mean, it's not that we've seen it. I mean, haven't even seen it in its full form, right?
We
Like
did not.
we've seen it on the far end of the decline. Like the '80s is way into it already.
Yeah, none of us were born while that was still a
You
thing.
would have had to have been in like the '50s almost,
The 60s, the 70s is when it
maybe
started
even the
dying.
'30s. No, maybe
No,
'20s,
70s.
'70s.
70 Carter's project was to convert capitalism from its old form to the finance form. And finance capitalism has a different kind of a setup. This is why these people are so
Was
enslaved to
it
the system.
Carter? Because I feel like
Yeah,
didn't he like warn people about it too? So
no.
he just fucked everyone over and then warned them.
What Carter did was essentially say, like, this is what we're going to have to do to survive as a capitalist country, and then did it. He ate shit for it. That's why he only got one term as a Democrat, which is unheard of.
Yeah,
Democrats just don't get one term. That's why 2024 is going to be very interesting to see if we have a second Carter on our hands. Um,
I have a blast walking around down here saying that there is a good politician that everybody would like, that he you know, he's a devout Christian. He still does Sunday school, even though he's very old, and his cancer miraculously disappeared, so he's feeling better, and he travels around and does charity work all over the world. And always, who is it? I'm like, oh, it's Jimmy Carter. Maybe you guys would like that guy. Have you guys heard of that guy? And
yeah.
then like every old conservative down here, or even younger conservatives, like they know literally nothing about that dude except that they heard that they didn't like that dude. Like
Yeah,
that's literally how memory hold it is, just
that
like how that motherfucker got buried.
I mean, after all, isn't that all they need to know?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's precisely because Carter's project was to enshrine the form of capitalism we have today. He was the midwife for modern capitalism, and he spent his political capital to do it, lest we lose superpower status. So Carter is as much a piece of shit as any of them. Don't let his little fucking doofy smile and his charity work fool you.
Oh
It,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just like to shove it in their face down here because they should
yeah,
eat that shit up, but there's a D next to his name or whatever.
right. Well,
I mean, he's a president.
right. But more so than that, the presidents before him still tried to maintain the natural, I don't want to say natural form of capitalism, but the basic form of capitalism, labor production, consumption capitalism, instead of finance capitalism. Because finance capitalism is a funny thing. All of that wealth doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
Our economy is a $32 trillion economy with about 8 to $10 trillion in assets, if I'm being generous. The other 22 is paper. It's not real. So one of the problems with a mass redistribution, like if we were to take out the capitalist class, we would suddenly find our books missing. Let's say, all right, let's pretend for a moment that we spearhead the revolution, us and our buddies, right? When we go to audit the place, we're going to find that there's just trillions upon trillions of dollars that frankly don't exist anymore because the old order has been destroyed, because it's not in the form of physical wealth, and it's not in the form of paper money, and it's beyond
That
electronic. It's tied up in stock ownership. It's tied up in all sorts of awful bank arrangements and debt. It's not real.
Nothing's real.
No, there's a lot of shit that's real. I contest that if you go stub your toe, you'll figure out that's fucking real.
Nope. Fake.
Yeah.
Fake
Well, then go stub your toe. I'll wait.
news.
Just go kick your stove real hard with a bare foot. Go on, wait. Come on. If you think you could beat me on that test, go ahead, do it.
preferably the pinky.
Yeah, go right for the pinky toe. I can sure as fuck tell you I'm real, and that's the basis for everything.
The week we did the short selling thing, I think about this shit all the time now since I started hanging out with you guys. The fucking just the idea of how much of this shit is essentially created out of different individual humans having faith that things are about to be really great. Like how much of this shit is created whole cloth out of that idea
Yeah,
and value is attached to that. Like I just think about that shit all the time now.
well, that's literally what price is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's quite literally price is a made up number, and it's an interconnected set of made up numbers that if you unravel one, you haven't done anything. But if you unravel enough, Sorite's paradox problem, suddenly you find the whole price system falls apart. Um, which would be one of the premises to forming a new order. But the problem with finance capitalism is since so much of that wealth is paper, and it can fall apart at any moment. See the stonks saga. I'm sorry, I'm getting dehydrated. Um, since that's all paper, these people can't redistribute it if they wanted to, right? And I will say something that's heretical on the left. I think a lot more of them do want to actually redistribute it and really take the boot off of people's necks because that logic they always throw out, we're the richest country in the world. They know that. They know
Yeah.
people shouldn't be starving, but you can't just transfer 10% of Jeff Bezos' stock back to the treasury. It will lose value at that point because now the company's held by the government. Nobody has faith in the government because the government has proven itself ineffective. They can't just
Like,
pump checks out at people. That's an admittance that the system doesn't work as presented. That
I can't
all of
even
it.
imagine if you tried to audit that thing. Like I did work at one of those for a little bit, and if you tried to audit that thing, like shit comes back in returns, like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of merchandise, televisions, and all this shit, just comes back in returns, and there's absolutely no inclination. That thing is just going to make more money selling new product. So it just doesn't matter what happens to that shit. It just doesn't. Like if you were to try to put it on the books, like if you were to try to say, okay, stop Amazon, how much is all this merchandise worth? Like, yeah, I see what you're saying about all the wealth just vanishing post revolution.
Yeah, well, it'd have to. You don't think about how many times one house can be sold before somebody can actually afford the mortgage, and how much wealth has been created and lost on the artificial debts that were there. That alone is an astounding figure that would just evaporate if you change it to universal housing, right? It would just go away. Everybody, and the problem with real estate in particular, on this finance basis, is the minute you do something like that, the property values lower because the market reacts to it. If there is no artificial demand on that market, and artificial short supply in that market, then property values are going to lower because buyers and sellers are going to react to the fact that people that they don't want having houses now have houses, some of them near their property. And the minute
Yeah.
somebody manages to arrange a sale at a lower price to move away from there is a rolling effect throughout the market where all that shit starts going down. Because the problem with real estate, I don't know if you know this, but land touches.
Yeah.
The problem with the problem with the real estate market is not so much that your house is valued at X, it's the problem that your neighbor's house is valued at Y. And if his property value goes down, your property value goes down. And if you move a
Like,
homeless person in at Z next to Y, Y's property goes down because now there's a filthy former homeless person in there. And that
it's like if
person
you
That's not the only method of home appraisal, which I'm actually now super familiar with after taking a bunch of tests on it. So
Fun.
there is actually an alternative methodology to home appraisal.
well,
and
there's
it's
what,
called
use
the
value.
substitution method. No. The use value is one too, but
Yeah.
substitution methodology or the replacement methodology, right? What you're talking about is substitution, but there is like a fundamental cost to, as we spoke before, right? It costs so many fucking McDonald's McDoubles to build a house, to buy the wood, to do all the things. You can break that down to some product of labor, right?
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
is a fundamental cost to build a 3-bedroom home, and it's higher than the cost of building a 1-bedroom shack, right?
I
Right.
always thought like we had some real estate knowledge and experience in our family when I was growing up, and I always thought it seemed to me that that was why our wonderful former president was so obsessed with this is a shithole country. These guys over here aren't doing good. These guys over here aren't doing me any favors. It seemed like he looked at everything as like real estate with like touching borders,
Yeah.
like right? Like it seemed like that was his mindset. Was
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
that even though he didn't have any sympathy or compassion necessarily for human beings like as like God's beautiful perfect creation or anything like that, he did want for uh for nobody to be fucking up that bad in his neighborhood.
If by neighborhood you mean people around Mar-a-Lago, yeah, but he probably values on substitution.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean, I agree.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can see him personally just like going to adjacent properties down there and just being like, your yard, it looks terrible. Like I can totally see that.
the other problem is I understand what you're saying. The cost to build a new house, the cost to build one new house that first time is on that basis of the actual physical cost of labor.
Hey, but there's a fundamental view of appraisal in that sense, right? Of like you can appraise the value of a home based on how much it costs to produce that home.
You can, but that only works really if you're building a new house. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense because you're not paying any laborers when you buy the house, unless you're paying them to renovate it, which is a cost you assume after the fact. Now you can say, well, the previous owner could pay for it to be renovated, right? And they're tying the cost into that, but he's still not building a new house. The cost of those McDoubles is already sunk. So you're only really taking that cost into play when you're building the new house. We have enough housing to move all the homeless people in. We would arguably using the use value or substitution models.
The substitution is what you're referring to, but again, it's
Those are the
not.
two we're going to use.
Those are the two we generally use, but those
Yeah.
are not the only two that we can use.
But you
That's what
can,
I'm saying is your argument is that we can only use the substitution model, but that's not the case.
no, I'm
There's
saying that's what's going to
model.
happen. I'm predicting that the substitution model would be the one that occurs.
Okay, that's more specific.
Yes. The other option is the use value, because the value you're describing, the rebuff I have on that is if I have an 1800s Victorian home, right? We'll say it was built in 1880. All right. And at the time of construction, adjusted for inflation, it cost a cool $500,000. Right. So in the
Right.
first year, it costs exactly $500,000. But if you're going to pay the cost of labor, you also have to take into account legitimately the number of years it's existed. The value would drop far more dramatically and far more quickly if we counted that into play, because you only spent the labor cost one time. It's the same problem as with software. And this, I think, is where Marx predicted his machine that could store labor, because the house stores human labor as well. There's a physical object here that was built. Like my place was built in the 60s. So for the past 60 years now, it's stored the human labor that built the house because the fucker's still standing, right?
There you go. Yeah.
The labor has only run out once the house collapses in upon itself. And if I don't let that happen, if I, keep up with it, which I intend to because I don't want it to collapse on me, right? If I do that,
considered just letting it collapse on you.
oh, I could, right? I could do that. And let's say for a second I did choose to do that. Eventually the human labor in it runs out and it runs to a zero value because there's no value in a dilapidated house that's collapsed in upon itself. The labor's been spent.
Some value. There's land there.
There's land there, sure, but now the land is even worth less because it's not just land. It's land with a dilapidated house that you have to remove. You have to sink more cost into it that is of a no benefit. You have to restore the value of the base land.
Then your New York real estate guy that's your neighbor comes by and he's like, "This place, it's falling apart. You're making me look bad."
Right.
You're fucking that guy too.
I'm going back to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, we're in we'll say for the sake of argument, it's 2020. It's last year, right? 1880. 0. That's 19. Bring down the 4. That's 140 years. So now you actually have what you have is $500,000 of human labor, but we have 140 years of depreciation functionally. So 14 goes into 50K. Oh, let's see. What is that? Wouldn't be 4 times, it'd be 3 times.
We're just
it's also a functional thing of like what are people willing to pay for it at a
So-
certain point. Something like that can become more valuable.
What you would have to do is interject new human labor into it, though. Again, the specific argument you made was on the construction time. So if I were to measure it based on the value of labor divided by the number of years it stood, my share of the labor when I make the purchase, I should only be paying about $3,000. Nobody's going to buy that fucking argument. $30,000. I misspoke. We should be paying about $30,000. Nobody's going to fucking
really
hear
feel
that out.
like
So
no,
and if you and if you
not for a moment.
I'm sorry. If you think about it, then if we go off of that model of appraisal, right, and this is why I'm a little curious as to why you'd even bring it up for this purpose, right? I'm talking about existing structures. You're talking about new structures. If we did that, a $500,000 home now costs what, Oh, 56, 70. You're talking $35,000.
No. The reason why I brought it up was because you specifically avoided saying anything about additional methods of appraisal. There
I
are additional methods of appraising the value of something beyond what the value of the buildings around it are worth.
Okay, I would retort with that though. I don't talk about when I'm talking about apple trees. I don't bring up oranges. I don't think it's unfair for me not to bring up oranges.
Yeah, but if you were talking about apple trees, I do mention that there's a Macintosh apple over there while you're yelling about Red Delicious.
Yeah, but if I'm only talking about Red Delicious and the problems associated with Red Delicious, I don't care about Macintosh for the purposes. See what I'm saying? We're not talking
No,
about building new
I don't
structures.
fundamentally agree with what you're saying. I
Fucking-
refuse to do so.
Well,
It's the most intense apple tree
let me
discourse.
put it to you another way, right? If I were to say the problem with guns, right? The problem with guns is that you can use them to commit crimes, and you were to say to me, "Oh yeah, what does AR stand for? How does an AR function?" Your counterpoint is it's frankly it's a great example of what capitalists do to avoid the problem, and literally the thing about Fight for 15 that's infuriating, right? It's the
Again,
Sorate's paradox.
This is not
This is
not
the
a comparable thing to what I
it's an
said.
entirely comparable thing because it's an expertise problem. Your argument is that I shouldn't be talking about it functionally because I'm not an expert in all the different types. I'm talking about
No.
what's really going to happen.
My argument is not that. My argument is that there are additional methods of appraising a home value beyond what you were referring to as the sole method of substitution.
I never said it was a sole method. I said it's what's going to happen.
You did say it was the sole method.
I did not.
You were only speaking about it as the sole method.
I was only speaking about it because it's the relevant method.
It's not
You guys
the
are
only
making me
relevant
think.
method.
It is the relevant method in the thing I'm describing. Yes.
The gun metaphor is making me think about that shit. Where did you guys see that shit where Bobert is sitting there underneath the fucking assault rifles with the mags in them with the fucking slide pulled back? They're just like
Ready
they're
to
several feet above her head, just
Yeah.
fucking sitting there all the time.
that
Like
that-
I mean,
in a world with a
Dan,
loving
as Dan
God.
well knows, I'm sitting here strapped up myself, so it
Yeah.
is what it is. I'm not.
No,
here
but I mean she's like she's like sitting there like a cartoon character underneath a fucking piano suspended by a rope or what. Like it's just fucking ridiculous. Like I think about that picture all the time now.
that is no different than when people were taking pictures and them pointing guns at their cocks. She's doing that to troll the lid.
Yeah.
That should not have been. She got what she wanted in the reaction.
And
Yeah.
just to be clear, in both of those cases, we don't agree with you. It's a foolish idea. Don't do that.
It again, what she's doing is trying to get you to say that very thing, so she's succeeded. Like
Yeah,
that's the part
yeah.
that people don't understand. They want people to make fun of her so that they can turn around and just be like, look at these fucking idiots thinking I was serious, right?
Yeah.
That's one of their mind games. But yeah,
It's a psyop.
This shit
functionally,
was on.
yeah, yes, it is a psyop. That the purpose of that is to make libs uncomfortable or feel superior.
Yeah.
I mean, this is pure garbage, ladies and gentlemen.
Our favorite psyop.
Yes.
Like it was on full display. Like I watched. Oh God, I watched a lot of the Young Guns from CPAC from yesterday. I watched a lot of Gates and Kirk and
This is terrible.
and Robbie Starbuck, of course. You know, noted Cuban Robbie Starbuck.
Every,
you know, noted
everything
noted
you're telling
Cuban.
me is terrible. Everything
And-
you're telling me is terrible. Why did you do that?
they mix it all up and they just do all these random, as you say, like psyops and attempts to like troll people and like all this stuff.
Very
And-
much so.
The crowd is like all the old donors and stuff, and they're not really feeling very much of it. But a thing I think was chilling that just kept coming up was that they all are anti foreign intervention all of a sudden, as of like the first day of the Biden administration. One of them even used the term adventurism, which I always, typically heard as like a term that the left would use to attack, empire. But they're saying this stuff and they're not getting a reaction from the crowd really. Like all the old people are like, do more red meat, talk about the Mexicans or whatever. But like, they did a little bit of that too. But I kept thinking like, no, there are guys at home that can't afford to fly to DeSantis land to watch CPAC and live. There are guys at home that are like, yeah, like if I do believe in the military, I support the military, But if there's a chance to vote in a way that will make it where my kid or my brother or whoever just comes home, I'll lay out of work. I'll fucking do it. I'll vote for whoever you are, whatever you say. And it was chilling to me. It's just that was the only thing I saw them doing where even though it wasn't hitting in that room, I was imagining it moving numbers to those fucking polls in 2022, man. It was chilling.
It will get some independence. That's who that's meant to appeal to, is the independents. The base loves the idea of murdering Muslims.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they're down. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you ask them, of course they're going to tell you that that's what they want to do. But it's just so hard for me to think like that after 20 years of this shit, that they all go back to the house and they look at those that gradually lengthening line of portraits like sitting on the mantle or whatever, and they just be like, in their heart of hearts, they don't think like, okay, if nobody can see who I voted for, and I get a chance to vote for this motherfucker to be back on the block instead of writing me letters. Like, I think they would fucking do it when they were in the voting booth. I think they would fucking do it.
I do think that there is a sense from military families of wanting to bring their children home. Like I do
Yeah,
get that a lot.
Yeah.
that's more who I know down here is just people like that either have already done it and have family that's doing it, and even though they, like you say, if you say, "Do we want to kill all the Muslims?" they're gonna say, "Well, of course I want to kill all the Muslims. I'm not a pussy or whatever."
The problem is not necessarily the war; it's their child being the one at war. Right?
Yes.
So they're like
Yes.
they're totally game if your kids want to go shoot Muslims.
Right.
That's American.
Like
They
especially
just wish
listening to like
their
Gates
son
and
could come home.
yes, especially listening to Gates and these guys, it just felt like they were trying to change the tone. Like now it's Joe Biden who's playing with your boy's life. You know, like I could feel that tonal shift, and it was, I felt like it was the only solid thing in a sea of like, complaining about online censorship and a bunch of other dog shit that like what is that? Who gives a fuck? Like all the boomers are mad that they think they're shadow banned from Facebook, but they're not gonna vote differently based on that. They're gonna vote for taxes or whatever, like they always do. But the military into an interventionist policy, that thing to me had the ghost of maybe some meat getting put on those bones. I don't know. I could be wrong. I was very tired and pissed off from work today when I was watching CPAC. I just had a straight up just gun in the mouth kind of day. I really I was like that was the worst day at work ever. Let's put on CPAC right away.
Yeah, that's braver than I. What they're gonna do now is because of Democrats in office, they're gonna pivot to libertarianism.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it makes them sound more rational. When they're in power, you get the full bloodlust, you get the full freak out. When they're outside of power, uh, they have to throw the libertarian line because the libertarians are concerned about freedom, ostensibly, market-based freedom, which is what they would be most comfortable with. Although the notion of freedom to uh, a budding fascist, a wannabe fascist, an authoritarian, a monarchist, the cohesive thought behind the hardest part of the right, they don't give a fuck about freedom. Monarchists
No.
loathe libertarian freedom. Fascists view libertarian freedom as a baby brain step to fascism that you have to take, but you don't want to, right? You have to have liberals to become fascists. Which is true, you do. You can't jump from monarchy to fascism. It doesn't work like that. Because how do you reclaim the throne that's sitting right there? The liberals have to smash the throne so you have something to reclaim. You have a glorious past to look back on, your previous kings. That's part of Hitler's appeal. It's part of Mussolini's appeal, Franco's
They
appeal,
have,
etc.
they have to break the wheel. They have to melt the big chair with the fucking black dragon.
Yeah. Well, you have to take that step first. That way you can then have something to point to and say life was better then. This liberal democracy bullshit in the way, that's the real fucking problem.
Yeah.
So, this collective thought process is incredibly hardline and universally authoritarian, no matter what particular stripe any individual might be, right? They don't give a shit about freedom, but they're going to
No.
use that libertarian language. An excellent example of this is Hans Hermann Hoppe, which Jesus and I did an episode on way, way back in the day. I broke down one of Hoppe's speeches. And just kind of demonstrated that like he was a traditional Austrian fascist, right? But the long and short of it, there, I'll be as brief as I can, is basically Hans Hermann Hoppe will say things like, you need the freedom to choose who you associate with. And if perchance,
like those people at that Austrian restaurant that I ate at the other night.
right,
They
well,
were choosing who we associated with in that dining room.
yes, well, if by chance you and the rest of your community happen to say that there can't be homeless people in the community, or disabled people, or gay people, or trans people, or Jews, or blacks, or Latinos, that's your right.
You
That's,
always hit it with the double O.
yeah, the
When it's the
Jews.
it's that guy talking.
Yeah. So what they don't mean freedom there. What they mean is race purity, right? But they will absolutely launder it through libertarian freedom. So when it comes to fighting against the minimum wage, they're going to launder it through some sort of economic rights language. What it really means is we want to keep the boot on these people's necks, so we keep them producing. And this ties back into the finance capitalism problem, because if they're not producing, all that fictional money loses its value.
Yeah.
That's why even Democrats are very hesitant to fight for 15. And indeed, you'll have Kamala Harris, the lady in the White House right now, just beneath Joe Biden, the the lady who can tell the Senate parliamentarian to fuck off, scrub. The the lady who's the 51st vote if she pushes for budget reconciliation from Chuck Schumer. The lady who could lock down the 15. That's why she can go out there and tweet fight for 15 and make it seem like she gives a shit. But she could just do those things in a nice political way and
She
give a
goes on the
shit.
radio. She goes on the radio all the time, and she's like, "Yeah, I used to like smoke pot and listen to the Senate parliamentarians' albums when I was
Yeah,
growing up." The Senate
Black Suit and
parliamentarians,
Jam.
underappreciated funk band.
yeah. I used to play Toe Jam and Earl while smoking the weeds and watching Punky Brewster.
And play Toe Jam and Earl on the Atari Lynx in
Oh no,
1975 or
yeah,
whatever type of shit she would say.
right. So the problem with it is, like, she's out there, quote unquote, pressing the button for fight for 15 and whipping people up for it. That's a paper tiger, because she has all the power to do that. And then when it comes to the White House desk, you think Biden's in physical shape to stop her from making him sign it?
No.
You think that Dr. Jill Biden couldn't?
All it takes is a finger in the butt.
All it takes is one finger in the butt, and that little puppet will do what you want. Because he's dumb and old. He's gonna die soon. He's an old man. We're gonna watch a president die. That's not a threat.
Jesus Christ.
That's not a threat. That's a fact. We're gonna watch an old man die in office because his wife
I
wanted to be
think
president.
we are. Have you seen if it's a conservative news outlet, they use the photos that are, I don't know if they're not retouched or if they're like to make him look older, but it looks like, the fucking Mummy. It looks like the cover of the fucking Mummy.
Yeah,
You're
because
just
Biden's
like,
old.
holy shit, is that what he really looks like without the fucking Time Magazine filter? Like, Jesus.
The Secret Service can listen to this. Like, he's just going to die of old age in office. That's not a threat. That's a fact. Mortality is a fact, people. Like, I'm going to get old and die one day if I don't get killed by something else first. So is everybody listening to this. So is everybody not listening to this. And because Jill Biden wants to be president so fucking badly, we're watching her kill her husband by making him do this arduous job in real time.
Yeah.
Let's get in real quick here. Legally, these are jokes.
There's nothing joking. The problem is there's no
throw
threat
it
of
in there
violence.
for my own sake. It's just I feel good doing it. Is that okay with you?
I suppose, but that's a coward's way out. I mean, like, we have to accept the reality that Biden is going to die in office from old age.
He's
old.
The really cool Jacek Malzusi death is hanging out next to his head. You guys have seen that? I keep posting it on Twitter. It's this old Polish painter, and he did like a lot of angels and like muses and stuff like that. And they were kind of like tricked out with like wings and equipment and shit. But when he does death, it's always this like hard-working, broad-shouldered, working class looking lady that's just like wearing a black like field hand outfit and just leaned up on a post with her scythe. and she always looks tired and bored.
Yeah.
And I love that rendition of death, man. That motherfucker is leaned up on the White House right now, just like, oh god,
I'm waiting. But
this is arduous.
this is my point. It's not like Kamala couldn't kick Joe Biden's ass. It's not like she couldn't make Joe Biden sign it, and I mean by force. She could fist
Oh, yeah.
fight for 15 very easily. She's got a strong cross, and Joe's got a weak chin. So does Manchin.
Oh yeah.
You know, you seen half those senators? Glass jaws. She could take them. She's scrappier than she looks. She was a cop, for fuck's sake.
I still can't believe that nobody made the obvious boxing / Mike Tyson's Punch Out reference, Glass Joe, to
Yeah.
attack him during the. It was right there, Donald. It was right there, and you just
Donald
left it on the table. What do they call him? They called him some kind of dumb shit.
Listen, when Biden's being, or excuse me, when
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah.
do you know what Trump has been?
Radical liberal Joe Biden.
Do you know what Trump?
Maoist.
Do you know what fucking Trump calls black people when he wants to be racist? He calls them Squidwards. He has no fucking idea. He has no fucking idea. He's a dumb man. He's what's the best way to, if you were to describe the concept of intelligence as somebody's anus, I guess it's a non-zero number, but how high can it truly be? Honestly, it's an ass.
I don't even follow the SpongeBob theory of racial slurs. Like, if that's what the fuck is, what are all the other ones? Because you would want to make sure that every race had a character from SpongeBob.
Man, I just did the bit one time. I didn't think it through.
Like,
You're pressing a very tired, exasperated man who wanted to talk about Fight for 15 and got bogged down in a fight over appraisal values of fucking real estate.
Well, no, that's it though. That's it though. No, that's the real life, actual metaphor of how this shit works, right? Okay.
Yes.
Like, we're in good faith. We do care. We do feel like that the value of all these things is real, right? Like that
as we stated at the beginning, yes.
Yes, and we envision ourselves, like, as you laid out in the metaphor, like, okay, the skyline is ablaze, the wall is covered in the blood of the machine gun fire, it's happening, and we're like, okay, all this wealth disappeared, fuck, like we care about that shit. Like, we care about harm reduction in a scenario like that we envision is fucking tumbling down the goddamn trolley problem railway, that nobody can really stop it, that they're all just pretending they're going to be able to stop it. They're all just pretending they're going to be able to do another Jimmy Carter, right? But we feel like that they probably fucking aren't. And that's always going to be it, right? Is that we'll be in that mode of doing appraisal values and shit, while a motherfucker like the little pig man, the little ham man, the little man, just like a round shiny ham that is in charge at my work today, that as I was driving a piece of heavy equipment through just a crowd of people and just like surging like fucking racks loaded with commodities and like all the other warehouse type good times, right? As I'm driving this piece of equipment that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm training on it, I'm training the route, he walks by directly in the way of another guy who's trying to work, and performatively, the most macho that he can, just a soft little, just a little puppet, like a little felt puppet of a man, just says, yeah, open it up, yeah, to encourage me to like go faster, but not in like a work faster, hurry up kind of way, in like a, yeah, this is good, like this is awesome kind of way. Like, it'll always be him. It'll always be him that actually has the demographic behind him, has the rest of the Republican Party and the Libertarians and most of the liberals behind him, and let's just more. Just don't look ahead of you to see if you're going to run over that guy that's talking on a cell phone. Don't look behind you to see if you're holding up anybody else. Just go. Just push the fucking equipment. If I had impaled somebody with that fucking equipment today, he would have been surprised, but it would have been all my fault. It would have had nothing to do with a man who ostensibly is supposed to be in charge saying just go thoughtlessly. Yeah. Just the word go, just leaving his mouth just thoughtlessly. Like, I don't mean to I don't mean to get off on a Dennis Miller like energy here. I apologize for the Dennis Miller energy. But that's it, isn't it?
You
is
should
that we're
apologize
careful.
more for bringing up Dennis Miller. Point of order.
Yeah, he's no longer the Dennis Miller that we once knew. What? That's it though, isn't it? The core here is that we care, is that we look ahead of us on the piece of heavy equipment and we think about the future and the real value of all these things, and then you look over and next to you is that little libertarian, that little conservative, just a soft little pig man, and he's like, go, just just go, just do it. Like that's what's going on, right? I mean, is this metaphor wrong or is this accurate?
Thanks for making me feel awkward about it. Here we go. So I'm going to take just a brief moment here to clarify my nitpicking. I think the most effective way of fixing the fundamental problem right now within the society that we have with the tools that we have is a raise to the minimum wage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't think it's the ideal solution. It's not the solution that I would envision for a more perfect and just world.
I agree.
But I think that it is the most achievable solution in the methods that we have to fix it.
Yeah. That
Past
motherfucker.
never.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's still never.
Still never.
Correct. I think if you wanted to give an analysis for tonight's episode, I set out to show the problems with the Fight for 15 situation, which is essentially a very, very tired person who has done all the math is getting railroaded
But
with
I don't
bullshit.
wanna.
And we have, I don't want to, let's just smash capitalism. But what about the other modes of appraisal? And holy shit, this pig fucker at work.
Yeah. There you go. That's it,
That-
right?
That,
That's it.
dear audience, is the problem with Fight for 15 in a nutshell.
That's it. That's perfect. Like
There-
I'll take it,
Damn
man.
leftists.
There's no
I'll
more
take it.
energy.
Fucked up over everything.
Well,
I'll take it.
listen, leftists leftists and right wingers are natural enemies, just like leftists and liberals, and
Leftists and leftists.
leftists and other leftists. Very, very cantankerous
Damn
people.
leftists ruin everything about the left.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the
That-
little pig man too much. I'm thinking about the little pig man too much because my first day there, a
They're not
21-year-old
true
kid,
Scotsman.
a 20.
Willie.
my first day there, this 21-year-old kid trained me to do the first
Yeah.
station that I did there, and he's just so innocent and young and honest, and he's just always walking around just saying whatever he saw, saying whatever he thought about everything, and I guess just kind of thought like maybe that nothing bad would happen to him, or maybe he just didn't care because he's got enough time for a total do-over, several total do-overs of his career, of his life. He's young, and he's doing the craziest white boy routine, which I really was happy because when I saw it was a white guy who was going to train me, I was like, oh god, here we fucking go. But then it wasn't that, it wasn't what I was expecting, so I was happy. He was doing the craziest white boy routine, which our black coworkers, I could tell they found it endearing. Like sometimes a guy overdoes it, but with this kid, I feel like they genuinely found it endearing. How hilarious he was, just hilariously white and trying to affect like, no, I was the first white person ever to want to see the photos of your sister's butt implants on your phone or whatever, like doing that routine. And they fired the shit out of this kid for cussing out the little pig man in front of the other supervisors. And people afterwards said, well, if you're gonna go after them, you have to have a perfectly clean record. And that kid, his attendance was bad and shit. And I just, the fact that they took his side, that they knew he was being honest about the criticisms he made about the supervisor, but that they still in some way, my coworkers, feel like that you can have that record, that you can be the guy who is unimpeachable enough, that you never stepped over the yellow line in the pedestrian throughway and got too close to a forklift, that you never had a point on your attendance, that you never didn't wear your safety glass, that you never did any of these things. And then if you attacked them then, they would all get fired and you would be rewarded. The fact that they still believe that, it cut me so deep, you guys. It cut me so deep. And I just
brutal.
nodded along. I didn't try to be like, this is what capitalism is to those motherfuckers. They work so much harder than me. They've been there so much longer than me. Some of them
Yeah.
have second jobs, right? I
Right.
just kind of nodded along and I was like, yeah, I guess he just was a little dirty himself, so it's okay that the fucking porcine ham man fired him for fucking, like, oh, but it weighed on me. I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys' I appreciate you guys putting up with me on that one because it weighed on me, man.
Oh, I know, we can tell. It's all right. We're here to vent. But we're going to save our venting for tomorrow night. We're going to be doing another stream tomorrow. As always, this was the Sons of Trier. You can find us on Facebook.com, so Triercast. You can find us on Twitch TV / Sons of Trier. Or you can find us on YouTube by putting Sons of Trier Official in your little search bar there. You can go click the bell. You can subscribe. We drop bonus content on that platform, largely in the form of remixes. We're looking at other avenues. We are in the process of building Patreon and bonus content. We're still working on the forums of that. And of course, if you want to yell at me directly, you can go look me up on Facebook and friend Dan Cohen, aka Muammar Al Gaddafi. You can friend Christopher Gadsden, aka The True Horror, and yell at him. I would prefer that.
Dr.
Yeah,
Dan Cohen doesn't know it, but opening up soon. OnlyFans.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, an
I'm
OnlyFans?
looking for it.
I set up cameras around you, Dan.
Oh, actually, this is a good night. I'm just in my underpants, and the ball is huge right now.
Perfect.
And you can get some really good feet. Did you aim for the feet? You can get some really good feet pics tonight. And you'll be able to find those feet pics on Patreon.com once we get that all started. And you'll
Yep.
be
Hey,
able
Walt.
to. Also, you can interact with us in real time anytime of the day through Twitter at KetzerN for me and at True Horrors 69. And of course, check out True Horrors Patreon. A lot of
yeah.
good content there.
Yeah, we have so many things for you guys. We do all of these things for you guys. Because going all the way back to the cave paintings, if you guys didn't look at it and listen to it, then technically we didn't do it. Then we don't exist. Then none of this exists. Then, oh God, cut my mic.
Yeah, I'm going to. All right. And again, this is the Sons of Trier live stream / podcast. I am always your in pain, insane host, Dan Cohen. I was joined by Jank Engels, Eat the Rich, and True Horse 69. Good night. I'm going to go fall on
Good
the floor and
night.
die.
Good night.